All right, Missouri marijuana. Legal Missouri 2022 and everything the people behind this initiative don't want us to know about. Hi guys, my name is Christina, and like many of you, I have been following the recent legislation that is seeking to legalize adult use recreational marijuana here in our state. One of the more popular initiatives right now is called Legal Missouri 2022. Some of you may have heard about it. They are currently attempting to collect enough signatures to put their initiative on the ballot in November. But in the process of collecting those signatures, they have failed to mention certain details about their initiative that we all need to know about. So one of those details is the fact that the Legal Missouri 2022 initiative was written by the same group that was behind our medical marijuana program from 2018. So some of you are familiar with this, but right now here in Missouri, it costs approximately $400 per ounce for a decent quality medical marijuana. And the reason for that is license limits. So this is something that was included in the medical marijuana initiative. And this is also included in Legal Missouri 2022's initiative for adult use. And that is the fact that DHSS, the Department of Health and Senior Services, has the authority to cap or limit the number of licenses for cultivation facilities and dispensaries here in this state. So by limiting supply, which is essentially what these license caps are doing, they are limiting supply, they are artificially inflating the cost of the product. So right now, you can get an ounce of marijuana black market for about $200 an ounce. That is insane to think that medical patients, are currently expected to pay $1,600 per month because every patient is limited to 4 ounces, approximately 4 ounces per month. Medical patients are expected to pay $1,600 per month for their medication, for their medical marijuana. The same people who designed a system that is charging sick and dying patients $1,600 a month for medication is now attempting to design an adult use recreational program. So another detail that Legal Missouri 2022 does not want anyone to know about is the fact that they are leaving some details out when it comes to one of the important selling points that they've been trying to present to people about their initiative. So they keep bragging about how they are creating cheaper business licenses for poor people or people who have graduated from an unaccredited school district or people who have been directly affected by marijuana prohibition, people who have a family member who has gone to jail or has had any kind of negative experience as a result of marijuana prohibition. So they keep bragging that they have created these licenses specifically for this group of people that needs help. But what they don't say is the fact that these cheaper licenses, these micro businesses, there are only going to be a few of them created, one, and two, whoever is applying, they are limited to one license per entity, per applicant. So if I apply for one of these reduced fee micro business licenses and I get one of them, I am not allowed to apply for any others, which sounds fair, right? Except for the fact that a full-priced business license, a full-priced dispensary or cultivation facility license, which costs, $7,000 to apply for, $7,000 to $10,000 to apply for, one person can own up to 10% of the total number of licenses. That means that if there are 400 licenses granted, that's 40 licenses that one person is allowed to own, that one entity is allowed to own. So explain to me why in Legal Missouri 2022, rich people are limited to potentially dozens of licenses, but people who actually are desperate to have a business, people who have been negatively affected by prohibition and everything that it entails are limited to one. Rich people, dozens. Poor people, limited to one. Legal Missouri 2022 continues to put DHSS in charge of the adult use recreational program. So again, this may not sound like a very big of a deal, except for the fact that whenever licenses were awarded and all of the denials came out for the medical marijuana program, DHSS was immediately accused of corruption. So all of the denied licensees, all of the denied applicants who had dropped, $7,000 to $10,000 on applications to hopefully own marijuana-related business here in this state, they noticed that there were some discrepancies in the license denials. And they realized that some people were approved for licenses, even though their answers to the questions were exactly the same as some of the people who had been denied. So again, immediately, these people filed suit against DHSS. So far, at least one litigant has prevailed. They have won $28 million associated with unfair awarding of licenses when it comes to dispensaries and cultivation facilities here. And that's $28 million. Just one litigant, okay? And there are hundreds left to go. So Legal Missouri 2022, instead of cutting DHSS out of the picture, they put DHSS in charge of the adult use recreational program. And one of the biggest problems I personally have with that is the fact that the money that was paid into the medical marijuana program, all of the taxes, that was supposed to go to the Veterans Fund. My sister is a veteran, okay? I'm sure there are countless people across our state who are veterans or have family members who are veterans. So instead of that money going to the veterans, DHSS used $6 million to defend themselves against these corruption charges. $6 million is already gone. How much more is it going to cost? Legal Missouri 2022 is completely aware of the fact that DHSS has been accused of corruption. They're completely aware of all of these things. Why did they not limit the amount of power that DHSS has? Why did they put DHSS in charge in the first place? There are so many other state entities that would be better equipped for this. So we have an alcohol and tobacco division. Why not put them in charge? No, instead, DHSS is still in charge, even though they have hundreds of pending lawsuits against them. And they've already taken $6 million of our veterans' money to defend themselves against these corruption charges. What kind of logic is that? Is that really what we want for the adult use recreational program here in our state? I personally don't want that. And I don't think that anybody who gives a shit about our veterans is going to want that either. So why is Legal Missouri 2022 neglecting to mention these details? Another selling point that Legal Missouri 2022 is attempting to use to convince people to sign their initiative is the idea of expungement. So anyone who was convicted of a nonviolent cannabis-only crime that did not involve driving under the influence or giving marijuana to a minor is eligible to have their sentence vacated. Their sentence is going to be expunged. However, that does not apply to anyone who was convicted of having 3 pounds or more of marijuana. So some classes of marijuana-only criminals are going to be allowed to walk free eventually, whereas others, anyone who was caught with 3 pounds or more, are going to be stuck rotting away in prison until their sentence is over with. That is not fair. That is not right. Are we ending prohibition or are we continuing it? Legalization does not involve letting some people go, letting some people have a free pass, and leaving others to rot for literally the exact same thing. The only difference is that some of those offenders had more marijuana on them than, these other ones that are allowed to walk free. That is not right. That's not fair. But we're also going to talk about another issue Legal Missouri 2022 does, and that is they are still allowing criminal charges for possession of marijuana. So even though they are claiming that they are going to legalize marijuana here in the state, if you are caught with more than the limit that they have imposed in their initiative, you are subject to fines. There may not be jail time, but you are still subject to some kind of consequence for simply possessing marijuana. This is a problem. We do not want half-assed legalization. Legalization is coming. This isn't about when or how. It's about who gets to profit. That is the only question that we are attempting to answer right now. Legal Missouri 2022 wants to make sure that their special interest groups are the only ones that are allowed to profit. That is not right. That is not equal access. That is not what any of us here in this state stand for. There was a time when all of us were younger, when we swore that once we were old enough, we would change things. We would do away with marijuana prohibition. We would finally legalize everything. Well, now we're finally older, and instead of us changing things, the people who vilified us are still the ones who are in control. Why are we not stepping up and demanding something better? We outnumber all of these people. We are no longer the social rejects. We are no longer the losers, the ones who have nothing to offer society. We are everyday people. We are business people. We are dreamers. We are artists. We are functioning and valuable members of society. We are a community. And instead of joining together and demanding what we want, we are allowing special interest groups like Legal Missouri 2022 to decide for us what change looks like. Why are we letting that happen? Why aren't we stopping them? Why aren't we demanding that our legislators listen to us and finally give us what we want? So some of you may be wondering, if Legal Missouri 2022 isn't any good, what other options are there for recreational adult use legalization here in Missouri? So there's a group, some of you may have seen it on Facebook, called Show Me Can of Freedom. They're currently working on an initiative that will legalize marijuana similar to alcohol, which is something that I personally want, and I'm sure quite a few of you do as well. In the meantime, until the initiative that legalizes cannabis like alcohol is ready to go, the most important things that you can do to help is, one, spread the word about Legal Missouri 2022. People need to know what kind of monopoly it is creating. They need to know that $6 million was diverted from veterans, and that Legal Missouri 2022 is attempting to put the same group that misused that $6 million in charge of the recreational adult use program. We need to tell people, make sure that they know that Legal Missouri 2022 limits poor people to one license while rich people can have dozens. People need to be aware of the corruption that is behind this initiative so that they can say no. We do not want this. This is not legalization. This is not fair. This is a blatant attempt to monopolize the legal marijuana industry here in Missouri and ensure that regular people like you and me do not have the option of participating in this market or in this business. The second most important thing that you can do is to call your legislators. Most people don't understand, or most people are not aware of the fact that you can walk right into the Capitol building and talk to your state representatives and senators anytime our legislature is in session. As long as they are not actually, in a meeting or something like that, you can walk right in and talk to them. I have been to Jefferson City one time. I plan on going back on January 26th. There has been a lobby day organized for discussing marijuana legalization with our legislators, and I do plan on attending that as well. If you don't have time to go in person, send them an email, give them a call. Some of them even have their cell phone numbers published. You can text them. I have sent text to a couple of them now. It is not that difficult to reach them, and you can tell them that this is what you want, or you're not voting for them next election. It's that simple. So in the end, this is something that we all need to work together for. We outnumber these people. We have the right to demand something better than Legal Missouri 2022 or, some ridiculous legislation, that's going to cause more problems than it's going to solve. We have the right to do something about this. And it's time that we finally step up and do it. Thanks, guys.